This is not nostalgia for the good old days. This is physics backed by data and confirmed by heating engineers across North America. You are paying more to heat your home right now than your great-grandparents paid. Not just more in total dollars, more per unit of energy, more inefficiently, and more vulnerably. Let me show you why. Modern forced air furnaces, 80 to 90% efficiency on paper. In practice, 65 to 75% when you account for ductwork leaks and thermostat cycling. A properly constructed masonry stove with thermal mass, historically documented at 90 to 95% heat retention. Sometimes measured as high as 97% in Scandinavian research. That's not a 5% difference. That's a 20 to 30% gap in your actual heating cost. Swedish researchers studying century-old soapstone stoves in rural Dalecarlia found they still outperform modern baseboard heating in thermal efficiency tests. The Norwegian Building Research Council published findings in 1987 showing that homes heated with masonry heaters used 30 to 40% less firewood than those with conventional wood stoves of the same era. And here's the part that matters. Families in rural Russia, Finland, and northern Sweden still use these systems. They're not using them because they're poor. They're using them because they work better. Excavations in northern Europe have found intact heating systems dating back 300 plus years. The Kacholafon, the German-Russian masonry stove, appears in archaeological records continuously from the 1500s forward. Not abandoned, refined, perfected. Why does the technology persist for 500 years if it's inferior? Because it works. A single masonry stove measuring roughly 5 feet by 5 feet and standing 8 feet tall contains 3 to 5 tons of thermal mass. When you burn a hot, complete fire in it for 2 hours, that stone absorbs and slowly releases heat for 24 to 36 hours afterward. This isn't theoretical. Russian dacha owners in the Urals can heat a 2,000 square foot cabin through a Siberian winter with a single morning fire if the stove is properly maintained. The Sustainable Building Research Institute in Vermont conducted a 3-year study, 2019-2022, comparing homes heated with EPA-certified wood stoves versus homes with modern propane furnaces in similar climates. The results: wood stove homes, average consumption of 4 to 5 cords per season. Propane homes, equivalent energy output required 800 to 950 gallons. At current propane prices, $2.50, $3.50 gallon, that's $2,000, $3,325 in fuel alone. Firewood at $250 cord. $1,000, $1,250 for the same heating output. 1 cord of wood contains approximately 20 million BTUs. 1 gallon of propane contains 91,500 BTUs. The math is brutal for modern systems. Eco-architect Robert Bean, who specializes in thermal mass design, documented a case study in upstate New York where a retrofitted masonry heater added $12,000 to construction costs, but reduced heating bills by $180, $220. Monthly a payback period of 5 to 7 years in that climate. Here's the physics nobody talks about. Thermal mass efficiency is not about burning fuel. It's about time-shifting heat. When you burn firewood in a modern cast-iron stove, the fire produces 100% of available BTUs over 3 to 4 hours. You get a temperature spike. You wait for heat to dissipate. Repeat, this is thermodynamic waste. When you burn the same amount of wood in a masonry heater with proper draft design, initial combustion temperature, 1,200 to 1,400 degrees Fahrenheit, complete fuel burn heat transfer into thermal mass, 70 to 90% efficiency, heat release over 18 to 24 hours, gradual, consistent. Stable indoor temperature, reduced cycling losses. Your heating system doesn't kick on and off repeatedly. Typical modern furnace, 8 to 12 cycles per hour. Each cycle loses energy. Dr. Erik Ingelsson at the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences published research showing that every on-off cycle of a conventional furnace wastes 3 to 7% of fuel energy just in the restart process. A masonry stove, 1 burn cycle per day, maximum efficiency in the energy release window. Let me break down the real cost over 10 years. Modern furnace oil, gas, electric, equipment costs $3,000, $1,000. Annual maintenance, $150, $300 fuel costs average home. Cold climate, $1,500, $2,500 year ductwork cleaning, $200 for $100 every 2 to 3 years, 10-year total. $18,000, $30,000 masonry heater system installation, $10,000, $16,000 significant upfront, annual maintenance, $50, $100, chimney sweep, minor repairs, firewood costs, sustainable harvest, $600, $1,000 year, no moving parts, no seasonal tune-ups. 10-year total, $16,500, $28,000 the breakthrough. Masonry heaters often last 60 to 100 years. Your forced air furnace lasts 15 to 20 years and costs $3,000, $1,000 to replace. Over 50 years? Masonry heater is operating at roughly 1/10 the cost. The death of the masonry heater coincides precisely with one event: the widespread availability of cheap fossil fuels and the rise of electric central heating in the 1960s, 1980s. This wasn't about technology improving. This was about energy becoming artificially abundant. From 1950 to 1980, real energy prices adjusted for inflation fell by 40%. Nobody cared about heating efficiency because fuel was essentially free. The masonry heater required knowledge, skill, and planning. Modern heating required money. We chose convenience over mastery. When cheap oil arrived, master stonemasons and heating craftspeople couldn't compete. By 1985, fewer than 200 masonry heater experts remained in North America. Today, maybe 500 across the continent. Compare that to 50,000 plus HVAC technicians. The knowledge didn't disappear because it failed. It disappeared because it wasn't profitable. Modern homes were designed for central heating. Open floor plans with 9-foot ceilings, sparse insulation, single radiant heat sources in corners. These houses cannot work with masonry stoves. We didn't just abandon the technology. We redesigned our living spaces to require the new one. Oil companies and furnace manufacturers had zero interest in preserving knowledge about wood heat. The National Association of Home Builders didn't certify masonry heater installers. Universities stopped teaching the craft. Within 2 generations, an optimization refined over 500 years became quaint. Master craftspeople don't write manuals. They train apprentices. Kill the apprenticeship system, which requires 5 to 7 years and low wages, and the knowledge dies with the last generation. We didn't improve heating. We outsourced it. We traded resilience for ease. We traded a system you could understand and repair for a system you had to call someone to fix. We traded $600 a year in firewood for $1,800 a year in fossil fuels, then built an entire industrial system, oil fields, refineries, trucks, pipelines to justify that choice. And we told ourselves progress had been made. Here's what deserves real attention. Your modern heating system is a dependency chain. It requires electricity to run the furnace gas, oil delivery from distant suppliers, professional technicians, only they can fix it. Constant fuel purchase and storage, the supply line never breaks, except sometimes it does. Texas 2021. European energy crisis 2022. A power outage for 36 hours in winter and your home becomes unlivable. A masonry heater requires basic firewood obtainable, locally understanding of fire. Learnable. Maintenance ability. Learnable. No dependency on external systems. Your great-grandmother could heat her home using local materials and knowledge. You cannot. You've made yourself more helpless, not more advanced. The Firewood Rule isn't really about firewood. It's about the realization that the past was not a time of struggle and ignorance. It was hyper-optimized. We abandoned it for convenience. You likely cannot and should not tear down your house and install a 5-ton masonry heater. Most people don't have the ceiling height, the structural support, or the architectural layout. I get it. This framework isn't a call to rebuild, but the principles underneath it. Those you can use today. That's where the real benefit lives. Principle 1. Stop fighting thermal mass, start using it. What most people do wrong? They see thermal mass as an obstacle, a concrete floor that takes forever to warm up, a thick stone wall that seems slow. They fight it by cranking up the heat. Why this fails? You're working against thermodynamics. Thermal mass wants to store and release heat slowly. Fighting it costs energy. What to do instead? Work with thermal mass. Keep interior temperatures stable and consistent. Lower your thermostat at night instead of rapid heating cycles. Insulate your attic and basement to preserve heat in the thermal mass longer. Physics backing. Every 1 degree reduction in thermostat cycling reduces system runtime by 3 to 5%. Stable temperature equals fewer heating cycles equals 15 to 25% fuel savings. Immediate action. If you have an unfinished basement, insulate the rim joists, the most heatless area. Cost $300 and $100, savings $200, $300 a year, 1 year payback. It's principle 2, burn hot, not long. What most people do wrong, they deliberately smolder fires to make them last all night. They choke the air intake on wood stoves to make a single piece of wood burn for 8 hours. Why this fails? Incomplete combustion wastes 30 to 40% of fuel energy as unburned volatile compounds that exit the chimney. You think you're extending the burn? You're actually wasting half the wood's energy while your stove sits cool for 6 hours afterward. What to do instead? Burn a smaller, hotter fire for 2 to 3 hours. Complete combustion. Full efficiency. Let the thermal mass or heavy metal castings store the heat, then slowly release it. If you have cast iron stoves, they become radiators. If you're using air-based heat, the hot dense fire heats air more thoroughly. Physics backing. Complete combustion requires oxygen and temperature above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Incomplete combustion at HA-700 degrees Fahrenheit releases fewer BTOs while creating creosote buildup fire hazard. Immediate action. If you own a wood stove, install a simple thermometer on the flue pipe. $15, $30. Burn until flue reaches 400 degrees Fahrenheit, then stop adding wood. You'll use 20 to 30% less firewood. Principle 3. Firewood quality is worth the cost. What most people do wrong. They buy green, wet firewood or use whatever tree fell in the yard. Firewood is firewood, right? Why this fails? Wet wood above 25% moisture content requires 20% of its energy to evaporate water before it burns. You're literally burning water. What to do instead? Buy firewood seasoned 1 to 2 years. Dry firewood 12 to 18% moisture burns 50% more efficiently than greenwood. Hardwoods, oak, maple, birch have 50% higher BTU content than softwoods, pine, spruce. 1 cord of seasoned oak equals 2 cords of green pine in actual heating output. Physics backing. Water has a specific heat of 1 BTU per pound per degree. A 20-pound piece of green wood wastes 2,000 plus BTUs just drying out. Immediate action. Calculate your yearly firewood consumption. Buy quality wood 1 year in advance. $300 investment now saves $500, $700 next winter. Principle 4. Thermal distribution beats radiant heat. What most people do wrong. They assume closer to the heat source equals warmer. They sit by the fireplace, cold everywhere else in the house. They use space heaters in one room. Turn off the furnace. Why this fails? Radiant heat sources create massive temperature gradients. 80 degrees Fahrenheit 2 feet away, 55 degrees Fahrenheit 20 feet away. Your thermostat reads 72 degrees Fahrenheit on average, but you're cold or wasting energy. What to do instead? Distribute heat evenly. Ceiling fans to push warm air from high ceilings down. Insulate cold exterior walls. Block off unused rooms instead of heating them. Use reflective barriers behind radiators to push heat into the room instead of losing it to exterior walls. Physics backing. Heat follows the path of least resistance. Uncontrolled, it heads toward cold exterior walls. Redirected, it warms living space efficiently. Immediate action. Install reflective foil barrier behind radiators or heat sources, $30 to $2. Add weather stripping to exterior doors, $40, $100. Savings, $150, $250 a year. Level 1. Free behavior change only. Stop smoldering fires. Burn hotter for shorter duration. Lower thermostat 2 degrees Celsius at night. Open thermal mass areas, basements, crawl spaces when you have excess heat. Close them when cold. Estimated savings, 10 to 15% of heating costs. Level 2. Low investment, $200, $500 install. Flue thermometer on existing stove. Add attic and rim joist insulation. Buy quality seasoned firewood 1 year in advance. It's estimated savings, 20 to 30% of heating costs. Level 3. Medium investment, $1,500. Install a high-efficiency, would insert an existing fireplace. Add heat recovery ventilation system, captures waste heat. Upgrade insulation in exterior walls or attic. Estimated savings, 30 to 40% of heating costs. Level 4. Major investment, $10,000 plus install a masonry heater if architecture permits. Full home energy audit and weatherization. Radiant floor heating with thermal mass. Estimated savings, 50% plus of heating costs over 20 years. We look at firewood and see a chore. A medieval mind saw a bank account. That stack of logs outside. It stored solar energy, that's capital. It's insurance against supply disruption. We've reframed it as primitive burden instead of recognizing it as what it is. A tangible, storable resource you can own and control. Your ancestors understood something we forgot. Comfort is not a product. It is a relationship with your environment. They didn't buy heat. They managed energy. They understood their home's thermal properties. They knew which direction the wind came from. They knew how to build a fire that would release heat slowly over hours. They made strategic choices about what to heat and when. We outsourced all of that knowledge to machines and monthly bills. We have built homes that cannot function without constant connection to industrial supply chains. No electricity? Your modern furnace doesn't work. Gas line breaks, that heating doesn't happen. Prices spike, you're trapped. We call this progress, but it's actually fragility. We've traded resilience for convenience and called it advancement. The firewood principle isn't really about logs and stoves. It's about the realization that the past wasn't ignorant. It was optimized. And in our rush to modernize, we didn't improve. We outsourced our competence to systems we can't understand or repair. That's the hidden cost. Not just higher bills. The loss of capability. The dependence. But here's the thing. The stone is still warm. The knowledge hasn't vanished. It's dormant. You can reclaim it. Not by abandoning modernity, but by understanding its hand, choosing which parts actually serve you. The fire goes out. But the stone remembers how to hold heat. What's the biggest heating loss you've noticed in your home? Is it the furnace cycling all night or rooms that never warm up? Let me know in the comments. I might have a principle that fixes it. Like this video if you've ever wondered why your heating bills keep climbing. Subscribe for more videos about the hidden efficiency and things we abandoned. Subscribe if you're interested in recovering the knowledge we left behind. The knowledge that actually works.